The emergency beacon screamed across 17 different frequencies, cutting through the void of space like a knife through silence. Captain Sarah Chun of the medical vessel Mercy's Hand was the first to intercept the distress call, though she almost wished she hadn't when the translation algorithms finally decoded the message. "This is Queen Zephyria of the Drakmori Empire. My companion Skorith has been gravely wounded in battle. We require immediate medical assistance. Please respond." Sarah's hands froze over the communication controls. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Drakmori Empire and their legendary dragon companions. The reptilian humanoids had conquered 12-star systems in the past century, their massive dragons serving as both weapons of war and symbols of absolute power. Most species feared them, and those who didn't simply avoided them altogether. The call repeated every 30 seconds, growing weaker each time. Sarah could hear the desperation creeping into the alien queen's voice, even through the mechanical translation. She looked around her small medical ship's bridge, where her crew of 6 humans worked quietly at their stations. They had all heard the message by now. "Captain," said Dr. Marcus Webb, her chief medical officer, "we should probably contact the Galactic Medical Council before responding to this." Sarah knew he was right. The Drakmori were not exactly welcome in most civilized systems. Their empire was built on conquest and intimidation. Just last year, they had demanded tribute from the peaceful Alterian colonies, threatening to unleash their dragons on civilian populations if refused. But as the distress call played again, Sarah found herself thinking about the oath she had taken when she first became a ship's captain dedicated to medical missions. The oath didn't mention species or political affiliations. It simply said to help those who needed it. "Dr. Webb, prepare the medical bay for an unknown alien physiology," Sarah ordered, her finger hovering over the response button. "Captain, are you sure about this?" asked Lieutenant Rodriguez from the navigation station. "The Drakmori have never exactly been friendly to humans." Sarah thought about this for a moment. It was true that the Drakmori Empire had little contact with Earth and her colonies. Humans were considered a minor species by galactic standards, having only achieved faster-than-light travel 200 years ago. Most advanced civilizations barely acknowledged human existence. "Maybe that's exactly why we should help," Sarah said finally. "Send our coordinates and tell them we're on our way." The response came immediately, filled with what could only be described as shock. "You would help us?" "We are Drakmori." "We're doctors first," Sarah replied simply. "Transmit your location." 3 hours later, the Mercy's Hand dropped out of hyperspace near a massive Drakmori warship that looked like it had been through hell. Scorch marks covered its hull, and several sections appeared to be completely destroyed. But what caught everyone's attention was the enormous dragon. Clinging to the ship's exterior, the creature was easily 300 meters long, with scales that shimmered between deep purple and black. Even through the viewscreen they could see it was badly injured. One wing hung at an unnatural angle, and what looked like weapon burns covered much of its hide. "My God," whispered Dr. Webb. "I've never seen anything like it." Sarah opened a communication channel. "Queen Zephyria, this is Captain Chun. We're preparing to dock. Can you meet us in your cargo bay?" "Captain Chun," the Queen's voice came through, and now they could hear the exhaustion in it. "I must warn you that Skorith is in great pain. He may not react well to strangers. My own medical staff was killed in the battle. We understand. We'll take proper precautions." As the Mercy's Hand carefully maneuvered into the warship's damaged docking bay, Sarah couldn't help but wonder what they were getting themselves into. No human had ever treated a dragon before. Hell, most humans had never even seen one up close, the docking sequence completed with a series of mechanical clicks and hisses. Sarah gathered her medical team, making sure everyone had their portable life support systems activated. They had no idea what kind of atmosphere they'd find on the Drakmori ship. The airlock doors slid open, revealing a dimly lit corridor lined with what appeared to be organic technology. The walls seemed to pulse slightly, as if they were alive. But it was the figure waiting for them that truly took their breath away. Queen Zephyria stood nearly 3 meters tall, Her reptilian features both beautiful and terrifying. Her scales were a deep emerald green, and her large amber eyes held an intelligence that was unmistakably ancient. She wore armor that had clearly seen recent battle, with scratches and dents covering its surface. "Captain Chun," she said, her voice carrying a musical quality that the translators somehow managed to preserve. "I am grateful beyond words that you have come. But I must ask why. We have done nothing to earn human friendship." Sarah stepped forward, her medical bag in hand. "Your Majesty, where we come from, we have a saying, a life is a life. Now, where's your dragon?" The Queen's amber eyes widened slightly, as if she couldn't quite believe what she was hearing. "This way. But please move slowly." Skorth has never seen humans before, and in his current state, they followed her through corridors that seemed designed for beings much larger than humans. The organic walls pulsed more rapidly as they moved deeper into the ship, and Sarah realized they were probably approaching the dragon's location. Finally, they emerged into a vast chamber that took up most of the ship's central section. And there, coiled in the center like a wounded mountain, lay Skorth. Up close, the dragon was even more magnificent and terrifying than Sarah had imagined. His massive head, easily the size of a small shuttle, turned toward them as they entered. One enormous golden eye focused on the human medical team, and a low rumble that they felt more than heard emanated from his chest. "Easy, old friend," Queen Zephyria whispered, approaching the dragon's head and placing her hand on his snout. "These are healers. They have come to help." Dr. Webb was already scanning the creature with his medical tricorder, his face pale but determined. "Captain, I'm reading massive trauma to the left wing structure. Severe burns across 30% of his body, and what appears to be some kind of energy weapon damage to his chest area." Sarah nodded, pulling out her own scanner. "Your Majesty, can you tell us what happened?" Queen Zephyria's expression darkened. "We were attacked by the Vorthan Confederation. They claimed we had violated their territory, but we were merely passing through what we believed to be neutral space. They used some kind of new weapon technology we had never encountered before." The dragon's rumble grew louder, and Sarah could see pain in that massive golden eye. Without thinking, she stepped closer, ignoring the fact that the creature could easily crush her with a single movement of his head. "Hey there, big guy," she said softly. "We're going to take good care of you." Something remarkable happened then. The dragon's rumbling stopped, and he seemed to study Sarah with renewed interest. Queen Zephyria gasped audibly. "In all my years," she whispered, "I have never seen Skorth react to a stranger with anything other than suspicion or hostility." Sarah smiled, already beginning to formulate a treatment plan. "Well, Your Majesty, maybe it's time for some new experiences all around." The next 6 hours were unlike anything Sarah and her team had ever experienced. Working on a creature the size of a small building presented challenges that no medical school had ever prepared them for. But humans had always been remarkably adaptable, and Sarah's crew proved no exception. Dr. Webb had rigged up a series of scaffolding platforms around Skorth's massive form, allowing the medical team to reach the worst of his injuries. The dragon had remained remarkably still throughout the process, though his golden eyes tracked their every movement with keen intelligence. "The wing damage is more severe than I initially thought," Dr. Webb reported from his position near the dragon's left wing. "It's not just broken bones. The Vorthan weapons seem to have disrupted the cellular structure itself. I've never seen anything like it." Sarah was working on a particularly nasty burn across Skorth's chest, carefully cleaning away damaged tissue. The dragon's scales were harder than any material she had ever encountered, yet somehow the Vorthan weapons had cut through them like paper. "These aren't ordinary energy weapons," she said to Queen Zephyria, who had remained close by throughout the entire procedure. "This looks almost like molecular disintegration. How did the Vorthans get access to this kind of technology?" The Queen's expression was grim. "We do not know. 6 months ago, they were using conventional plasma cannons. Now they wield weapons that can wound even a dragon. It is troubling." Lieutenant Rodriguez, who had been monitoring communications from the Mercy's hand, suddenly spoke up from his portable comm unit. "Captain, we're receiving multiple transmissions. Word is spreading that humans are treating a dragon. The reaction is ... mixed." Sarah paused in her work. "What kind of mixed?" "The Alterian Council is expressing gratitude for our humanitarian efforts. The Zentorn Republic is calling us fools. And the Galactic Medical Council is demanding an immediate explanation for our actions." Queen Zephyria hissed softly, a sound that clearly indicated displeasure. "You see? This is why no one answered our call. The politics of the galaxy matter more than life itself." "Politics don't concern me right now," Sarah said firmly, returning to her work. "Skorth's health does." As if understanding her words, the dragon let out a soft rumble that sounded almost like purring. His massive head turned slightly, bringing one golden eye closer to where Sarah was working. For a moment, human and dragon regarded each other with something approaching mutual respect. "Remarkable," Queen Zephyria whispered. "In the 300 years I have been bonded with Skorth, I have never seen him show such trust to a stranger. Dragons choose their companions very carefully." Dr. Webb's voice called out from the wing scaffolding. "Captain, I think I've figured out how to address the cellular damage. If I'm right about the weapon's effects, we might be able to use a modified version of our tissue regeneration protocol. But I'll need to synthesize a new compound specifically for dragon physiology. How long will that take?" Sarah asked. "At least 8 hours, maybe more. I'll have to work with organic chemistry I've never encountered before." Queen Zephyria stepped forward. "Dr. Webb, I may be able to assist. Dragons and Dracomori have been bonded for millennia. I know much about their biological systems." Sarah watched as her chief medical officer and the alien queen began working together, comparing human medical knowledge with ancient Dracomori understanding. It was exactly the kind of cooperation she had hoped to see, but their work was interrupted by an urgent beeping from Rodriguez's comm unit. "Captain, we've got company. 3 ships just dropped out of hyperspace. They're broadcasting Galactic Medical Council identification codes." Through the chamber's massive viewport, they could see the sleek ships taking position around the damaged Dracomori vessel. Sarah's heart sank as she recognized the lead ship's configuration. It was the Hippocrates, flagship of the Medical Council's Enforcement Division. "This is Medical Council Director Valen of the Hippocrates," came a stern voice over the communication system. "Captain Chin, you are in direct violation of Galactic Medical Council regulations by providing aid to a hostile entity without proper authorization. You will cease all treatment immediately and surrender yourself for disciplinary action." Sarah looked up at Skorth's massive form, noting the way the dragon's breathing had improved since they had begun treating his chest wounds. The burn areas were already showing signs of healing, and his golden eyes were more alert than when they had first arrived. "Director Valen," Sarah replied calmly, "I took an oath to preserve life. That oath doesn't include exemptions for political convenience. The Dracomori Empire has been classified as a potential threat to galactic peace." Director Valen's voice grew harder. "By providing aid to their military forces, you are potentially contributing to future conflicts." Queen Zephyria's scales darkened with anger, but she kept her voice controlled. "Director Valen, my dragon and I pose no threat in our current condition. These humans are simply honoring the most basic principle of medicine." "Your Majesty," Director Valen's tone carried a hint of condescension. "The Medical Council appreciates your perspective, but regulations exist for good reasons. Captain Chain, you have 1 hour to complete any life-saving procedures and withdraw. After that, we will be forced to take more direct action." The transmission ended, leaving an uncomfortable silence in the dragon's chamber. Sarah could feel the weight of the decision before her. She could follow Medical Council orders and abandon Skorth half-treated, or she could continue her work and face the consequences. "Captain," Dr. Webb said quietly, "if we stop now, the wing regeneration process won't take hold. In a few days, the damage will become permanent. Skorth will never fly again." Sarah looked up at the dragon's massive head, meeting those intelligent golden eyes. In them, she saw something she hadn't expected, understanding. Somehow, she knew that Skorth was aware of the choice she faced. "Your Majesty," Sarah said to Queen Zephyria, "if Skorth can't fly, what happens to him?" The queen's expression grew sorrowful. "A dragon who cannot fly is no longer truly a dragon. The bond between us would weaken and eventually break. He would fade away." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, thinking about everything she had sworn to protect when she became a doctor. When she opened them again, her resolve was absolute. "Dr. Webb, continue preparing the regeneration compound. Everyone else, keep working. We finish what we started." Queen Zephyria's amber eyes widened. "Captain, you would risk your career, your freedom, for a creature you met only hours ago?" Sarah smiled, gently patting one of Skorth's massive scales. "Your Majesty, there's something you need to understand about humans. When we decide to help someone, we don't do it halfway." The dragon's rumble filled the chamber again, but this time it carried a different quality. If Sarah hadn't known better, she would have sworn it sounded almost like approval outside the viewport. The medical council ships maintained their threatening positions. But inside the chamber, the work continued. Human hands and Drakmori knowledge combined to heal wounds that should have been impossible to treat. As Dr. Webb began the delicate process of applying the synthesized regeneration compound to Skorth's wing, Sarah realized that they were doing more than just saving a dragon's life. They were proving that sometimes the right choice was also the hardest choice, and sometimes that made all the difference in the galaxy. The regeneration compound had been working for 12 hours when everything went wrong. Sarah was monitoring Skorth's vital signs when the dragon suddenly convulsed, his massive form thrashing against the chamber walls. The scaffolding Dr. Webb had constructed shook violently, sending medical equipment crashing to the floor. "Everyone get back," Sarah shouted, grabbing Queen Zephyria and pulling her away from the dragon's writhing head. Skorth's golden eyes had gone wild with pain, and a low, agonized roar echoed through the chamber. "What's happening?" Dr. Webb called out, desperately trying to maintain his position on the wing scaffolding as it swayed dangerously. Sarah quickly scanned her medical readings. "His cellular regeneration rate is accelerating beyond safe parameters. The compound is working too well. His body can't handle the energy requirements." Queen Zephyria's face went pale beneath her green scales. "If his system overloads, the feedback could kill him instantly. You must stop the process." "There is no stopping it," Dr. Webb said grimly, finally making his way down from the scaffolding. "The compound has integrated with his cellular structure. It's going to run its course whether we want it to or not." Outside, Director Valen's voice crackled over the communication system. "Captain Chun, we are detecting massive energy fluctuations from your location. Stand down immediately, or we will assume you are conducting weapons research." Sarah ignored the transmission, focusing entirely on Skorth's condition. The dragon's convulsions were getting worse, and she could see that his breathing was becoming labored. They needed a solution, and they needed it fast. "Your Majesty," Sarah said urgently, "is there anything in dragon physiology that could help us regulate the regeneration process?" Queen Zephyria was quiet for a moment, her amber eyes distant. "There is, but it would require a direct neural link between Skorth and someone with strong life force. Traditionally, only another dragon could provide such a connection. What about you?" Dr. Webb asked. "You're bonded to him." "The bond is emotional and telepathic," the Queen explained. "What Skorth needs is pure life energy to stabilize the cellular regeneration. My physiology is too different from his." Sarah watched as another wave of convulsions racked the dragon's massive form. His golden eyes found hers through the chaos, and she saw something there that broke her heart: trust. Even in his agony, Skorth was looking to her for help. An idea began forming in Sarah's mind. One that was probably completely insane, but might be their only chance. What if we used a human as the energy source? Dr. Webb stared at her in shock. "Captain, that's suicide. The energy requirements would kill a human in minutes." Not if we distributed the load, Sarah said, her mind racing. My entire crew. All 6 of us, linked together and then connected to Scorith. We pool our life energy and feed it to him gradually. Queen Zephyria's eyes widened. Such a thing has never been attempted. We do not even know if human life force is compatible with dragon physiology. Only one way to find out, Sarah said grimly. She activated her cum unit. All hands to the dragon chamber, emergency medical situation. Bring the neural interface headsets from the med bay. As her crew rushed to comply, Sarah turned back to Scorith. The dragon's convulsions were weakening, but that wasn't a good sign. It meant he was running out of energy to fight the runaway regeneration process. Lieutenant Rodriguez arrived first, carrying a case of neural interface equipment that was normally used for complex surgical procedures. Captain, what exactly are we doing here? We're going to try to save a dragon's life by doing something that's probably impossible, Sarah said, quickly fitting one of the neural interfaces around her head. And if we're lucky, we'll only lose consciousness instead of dying. Dr. Webb was already connecting the interface units in series, creating a network that could link all 6 humans to Scorith through Queen Zephyria's bond. I'm going to be honest, Captain. I have no idea if this will work. The energy requirements alone. It'll work, Sarah said with more confidence than she felt. It has to. One by one, her crew fitted the neural interfaces and connected to the network. Engineer Lisa Park, Communications Officer James Ko, Security Chief Maria Santos, and Navigation Officer Tom Chun all stood ready. Despite the obvious danger they were facing, Queen Zephyria approached Scorith's massive head and placed her hands on his snout. Old friend, she whispered, these humans are going to try something very dangerous to save you. You must be gentle with their minds. They are not as strong as dragons, but their hearts are just as brave. The dragon's golden eyes seemed to clear for a moment, focusing on the 6 humans who were preparing to risk their lives for him. His rumble was so soft it was barely audible, but somehow Sarah knew it was an expression of gratitude. Initiating neural link in 3.2.1. The moment the connection activated, Sarah felt like she had been struck by lightning. Suddenly she was aware not only of her own thoughts and feelings, but those of her entire crew. More than that, she could sense the vast, ancient intelligence that was Scorith. The dragon's mind was unlike anything she could have imagined. It was deep and complex, filled with memories spanning centuries. She saw images of Queen Zephyria as a young Drakmori princess, first bonding with Scorith when he was barely larger than a horse. She felt their shared experiences, soaring through the void of space, the joy of flight, the deep bond between 2 very different beings who had chosen to trust each other completely. But beneath all of that, she could feel Scorith's pain. The runaway regeneration process was tearing through his system like wildfire, rebuilding cells faster than his body could supply energy for the process. Now, Dr. Webb's voice seemed to come from very far away. Channel your life force through the link. Sarah felt her crew respond as one, their combined life energy flowing through the neural connection towards Scorith. It was like trying to fill an ocean with a garden hose, but gradually, the dragon's cellular regeneration began to stabilize. The effort was enormous. Sarah could feel her strength draining away, and she knew her crew was experiencing the same thing. But they held on, maintaining the energy flow even as their own vital signs began to fluctuate dangerously. Through the neural link, she felt Scorith's gratitude washing over them like a warm tide. The ancient dragon was fighting too, using his own considerable will to regulate the regeneration process and minimize the strain on his human saviors. Slowly, incredibly, it began to work. The wild fluctuations in Scorith's cellular activity started to smooth out. His convulsions stopped and his breathing became more regular. The regeneration compound was still working, but now at a sustainable rate. Just as Sarah thought they had succeeded, Director Valen's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. Captain Chun, you have exceeded our patience. Prepare to be boarded. Through the viewport, Sarah could see armed shuttles launching from the medical council ships. But she couldn't break the neural connection now. Scorith's regeneration was at a critical point, and any disruption could undo everything they had accomplished. Your Majesty, Sarah managed to say through the strain of maintaining the neural link, can your ship defend itself? Queen Zephyria's expression hardened. My weapons are damaged, and my crew is severely reduced. But perhaps... She moved to a control panel that seemed to be grown rather than built, her hands moving across organic interfaces that pulsed with bioluminescent light. I can activate the ship's emergency systems. It will not harm the Medical Council vessels, but it should give them pause. Suddenly, the Drakmori warship came alive around them. Bioluminescent patterns raced along the walls, and a deep thrumming sound filled the air. Through the viewport, they could see similar patterns spreading across the ship's hull. Creating an impressive light show that spoke of hidden power, the Medical Council shuttles stopped their approach, clearly uncertain about what they were witnessing. Captain, Lieutenant Rodriguez said weakly through the neural link, I don't think we can maintain this much longer. Sarah could feel her crew's strength failing, but Skorith's regeneration was almost complete. The dragon's wing structure was rebuilding itself, and his other injuries were healing at an accelerated but sustainable rate. Just a little longer, she whispered. Just a little longer. And through the neural connection, she felt Skorith's response, a wave of determination that gave them all the strength to hold on just a bit more. The neural connection finally broke when Sarah collapsed, her consciousness unable to maintain the link any longer. She awoke hours later to find herself in the medical bay of the Mercy's Hand, with Dr. Webb monitoring her vital signs. How long was I out? She asked weakly, trying to sit up. 8 hours, Webb replied, gently pushing her back down. You and the crew nearly killed yourselves. But it worked, Sarah. Skorith's regeneration has stabilized completely. His wing is rebuilding itself perfectly. Sarah smiled, relief flooding through her. The crew? Everyone's alive. Exhausted, but alive. Rodriguez and Park are still unconscious, but their brain scans are normal. You took the worst of it, being the primary neural interface. What about the Medical Council? Last thing I remember, they were about to board the Drakmori ship. Dr. Webb's expression darkened. That's where things get interesting. Director Valen did board the ship, but when he saw what we had accomplished, well, let's just say his attitude changed dramatically. As if summoned by their conversation, Queen Zephyria entered the medical bay. Her emerald scales seemed brighter than before, and there was something different about her bearing. She carried herself with renewed confidence and pride. Captain Chun, she said formally, I owe you a debt that can never be repaid. Skorith is not only healing, but the bond between us has grown stronger than it has been in decades. Your sacrifice has given us both new life. How is he? Sarah asked. See for yourself, the Queen said, activating a wall display that showed the dragon's chamber. Sarah gasped. Skorith was magnificent. His scales gleamed with health, and his massive wing, which had been a broken ruin just hours before, was now perfectly formed and functional. But more than that, there was something in his posture that spoke of renewed vitality and strength. The neural link you created, Queen Zephyria continued, it did more than stabilize his regeneration. It allowed him to experience human consciousness, to understand your species in a way no dragon ever has before. He's changed by the experience. Changed how? Dr. Webb asked. He has gained a deep respect for human courage and compassion. Dragons choose their companions based on strength of spirit, and he now considers your entire crew to be honorary dragon friends. This is unprecedented in our history. Before Sarah could respond, Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice came over the ship's communication system. Captain, you need to get to the bridge. We're receiving transmissions from all over the galaxy, and some of them are surprising. Still weak but determined, Sarah made her way to the bridge with Queen Zephyria's help. What she saw there took her breath away. The main screen was filled with incoming messages from dozens of different species and governments. Report, Sarah ordered, settling into her captain's chair. Ma'am. It's incredible, Rodriguez said, his voice filled with wonder. Word of what we did has spread throughout the galaxy. The response has been unlike anything in recorded history. He brought up the first message. It was from the Alterian Council, the same peaceful species that the Dracomori had threatened just a year before. Captain Chun and crew of the Mercy's Hand, the Alterian representative's melodious voice filled the bridge. Your actions have shown that true courage lies not in strength of arms, but in strength of spirit. The Alterian people formally request to establish diplomatic relations with the human race. The next message was even more shocking. It came from the Zentoran Republic, a proud warrior culture that had never acknowledged humans as anything more than a minor species. Human warriors, the stern-faced Zentoran commander declared. Your willingness to face danger for the sake of honor has earned our respect. The Republic offers a formal alliance with Earth and her colonies. Message after message followed, each more surprising than the last. Species that had never given humans a second thought were suddenly offering trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and mutual defense pacts. The galaxy had taken notice of humanity in a way that no one could have predicted. There's more, Rodriguez said. Director Valen has requested a private conference with you. He's apologetic about his earlier threats. Sarah sank back in her chair, overwhelmed by the enormity of what was happening. Queen Zephyria, what exactly did you tell people? The Dracmori Queen's amber eyes gleamed with something that might have been amusement. I told them the truth, Captain. I sent a message to every government in the galaxy, explaining how 6 humans risked their lives to save a creature they had never seen before, simply because it was the right thing to do. I described your courage, your ingenuity, and your refusal to abandon a patient even when faced with overwhelming pressure. She paused, her expression growing more serious. But more importantly, I told them about the neural link, about how your crew willingly shared their life force with Scoreth, creating a connection between human and dragon consciousness. Such a thing has never been accomplished before, not even by the most advanced species in the galaxy. Dr. Webb was studying the incoming messages with fascination. Captain, some of these species are offering to share medical technology that's centuries ahead of our own. The Helix Confederation wants to exchange knowledge about neural interface techniques. The Crystal Mines are offering to teach us their regeneration protocols. All because we helped a wounded dragon? Sarah asked, still struggling to process the scale of the response. No, Queen Zephyria said softly. Because you helped a wounded dragon without expecting anything in return. Because you risked everything for the principle that life is sacred, regardless of politics or species. Because you proved that humanity possesses something that many advanced civilizations have lost, the willingness to do what's right. Simply because it's right. The communication system chimed with an incoming priority message. This one was from Director Valen himself, and his tone was completely different from their earlier confrontation. Captain Chen, I owe you and your crew a formal apology. Your actions have demonstrated the highest ideals of medical practice, and the Medical Council has voted unanimously to commend your conduct. Furthermore, we would like to offer you the position of Director of Interspecies Medical Relations, a new post created specifically in recognition of your achievements. Sarah looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew, all of whom had risked their lives for a creature they had never seen before. She thought about Scoreth, whose ancient eyes had shown such trust in humanity's compassion. She thought about Queen Zephyria, whose faith in their abilities had made everything possible. Rodriguez, open a channel to all the ships in this system, she said finally. Channel open. Captain, this is Captain Sarah Chun of the Mercy's Hand. To all who have sent messages of support and offers of alliance, we are deeply honored. But I want to make something clear. What we did here wasn't special. It's what any decent being should do when faced with suffering. We simply followed our medical oath and our human conscience. She paused, choosing her words carefully. If the galaxy truly wants to honor what happened here, then I ask that you remember this moment the next time you encounter someone who needs help. Species, politics, and past conflicts shouldn't matter when life hangs in the balance. That's the lesson we hope the galaxy takes from today. As the transmission ended, Queen Zephyr placed a gentle hand on Sarah's shoulder. Captain, you continue to amaze me. Even in triumph, you remain humble and focused on what truly matters. Through the viewport, they could see Skorth emerging from the Drakmori warship's docking bay. The dragon spread his newly healed wings wide, testing their strength. For a moment, he hovered in space, his massive form silhouetted against the stars. Then, in a display that left everyone speechless, Skorth performed an intricate aerial dance, his movements graceful and joyful. It was a celebration of life, of healing, and of the unlikely bond that had formed between human and dragon. "Well," Dr. Webb said quietly, "I don't think medical school ever prepared us for this." Sarah laughed, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction as she watched the magnificent dragon soar through space. "No, Marcus, but isn't it wonderful that it didn't?" 3 weeks later, Sarah found herself standing in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council, a massive structure built into an asteroid at the edge of neutral space. She had never imagined she would see this place, much less address the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The circular chamber stretched for nearly a kilometer in every direction, with delegates from hundreds of species occupying tiered seating that rose toward the domed ceiling. At the center of it all was a simple speaking platform where Sarah now stood, feeling very small and very human. "Captain Chun," announced the council's prime speaker, a crystalline being whose voice resonated through harmonic frequencies. "You have been called before this assembly to account for your recent actions regarding the Drakmori Empire. How do you answer to the charge that you violated established medical protocols?" Sarah took a deep breath, looking out at the sea of alien faces before her. Some were familiar from the messages she had received, others were completely unknown, but all of them were watching her with intense interest. "Honored delegates," she began, "I stand by every decision my crew and I made. We saw a being in pain and we helped. It's that simple." A murmur rippled through the assembly. The representative from the Helix Confederation, a tall being with multiple arms and silver skin, rose to speak. "Captain Chun, the Drakmori Empire has been a source of conflict for decades. By healing their primary weapon of war, did you not potentially enable future violence?" Before Sarah could answer, another voice echoed through the chamber. It was deep and resonant, unlike any sound the translation systems had ever processed. The assembled delegates turned in amazement as Skarth himself glided into the chamber through the massive main entrance. The dragon was even more magnificent than before. His scales now held an inner light that seemed to pulse with each heartbeat, and his presence filled the enormous chamber with an aura of ancient wisdom and power. Queen Zephyria rode upon his neck, her own bearing regal and proud. Skorth settled onto a platform that had been hastily constructed for this unprecedented appearance. His golden eyes surveyed the assembly before focusing on Sarah with unmistakable affection. "Honored delegates," Queen Zephyria's voice carried clearly through the chamber's acoustics, "I come before you not as a conqueror or a threat, but as a witness to something extraordinary. This human and her crew did not just save Skorth's life. They fundamentally changed how we view the galaxy and our place in it." She paused, her amber eyes reflecting deep emotion. "For 3 centuries, the Drakmori Empire has ruled through strength and fear. We believe that power was the only currency that mattered in galactic politics. But these humans showed us something else, the power of compassion, of sacrifice without expectation of reward." Skorth's rumble filled the chamber, and to everyone's amazement, the translation system somehow managed to convert it into words. "I speak for the first time in this assembly," the dragon's ancient voice resonated, "because what I experienced has changed me. Through the neural link created by these humans, I felt their consciousness, their motivations. They acted not from calculation or political advantage, but from pure compassion. It is a trait I thought lost to the galaxy." A delegate from the Vorthan Confederation, the same species that had wounded Skorth, rose nervously. "Great Dragon, does this mean the Drakmori Empire will change its policies?" Queen Zephyria smiled, an expression that looked surprisingly gentle on her reptilian features. "Indeed it does. I hereby announce the dissolution of the Drakmori Empire as a military force. We will become the Drakmori Protectorate, dedicated to defending those who cannot defend themselves, rather than conquering those who oppose us." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. This was perhaps the most significant political development in galactic history, and it was all because a human medical crew had refused to abandon a wounded dragon. But Scorth wasn't finished. There is more. The neural link showed me that humans possess something unique among all the species I have encountered in my long life. They choose to help others even when it costs them dearly. They do not calculate the benefits before acting with compassion. The dragon's great head turned toward the Vorthan delegate. You wounded me with weapons designed to cause maximum pain and permanent damage. Yet these humans healed those same wounds without hesitation. They harbor no grudge against your people, only concern that others might be hurt by such weapons. Sarah stepped forward, sensing an opportunity. Honored delegates, what Scorth says is true. We don't hold grudges, but we are concerned about those molecular disintegration weapons. Technology that can wound a dragon could devastate civilian populations if it fell into the wrong hands. The Vorthan delegates' bioluminescent patches flickered. With what Sarah had learned was embarrassment. Captain Chun, those weapons were developed in secret by a rogue faction within our military. When word spread of what they had done to the great dragon, our government acted swiftly. The technology has been destroyed, and those responsible have been punished. More than that, added another Vorthan representative, we offer to share our defensive technologies with the galactic community, to ensure such weapons cannot be developed again. Prime Speaker's crystalline form shifted, reflecting rainbows of light through the chamber. This assembly has heard remarkable testimony today. Captain Chain, your actions have not only saved a life, but have potentially prevented a galactic war and led to unprecedented cooperation between former enemies. Sarah felt overwhelmed by the praise. Honored Prime Speaker, I appreciate your words, but I want to be clear about something. What my crew and I did wasn't extraordinary by human standards. We simply followed our basic principles: help those in need, protect life, and treat all beings with dignity. These aren't uniquely human traits, they're qualities that any species can choose to embrace. A new voice spoke from the assembly, one that Sarah recognized with surprise. It was Director Valen of the Medical Council, who had threatened to arrest her just weeks before. Captain Chun is correct, he said, rising from his seat. The Medical Council has spent considerable time studying the incident, and we have concluded that her actions represent the highest ideals of medical practice. We propose that the Galactic Medical Council establish new protocols based on the principles demonstrated by Captain Chun and her crew. What kind of protocols? Asked the Prime Speaker. Universal medical aid, regardless of species or political affiliation, Director Valen replied. Emergency medical response that prioritizes life over politics. And most importantly, the establishment of mixed-species medical teams that can share knowledge and techniques across cultural boundaries. Scorth's rumble of approval filled the chamber. This is wisdom. The neural link showed me that different species possess different strengths. Humans excel at innovation and compassion. Drachmori understand the deep connections between bonded beings. Other species have their own gifts. Together we could accomplish what none could achieve alone. Queen Zephyria nodded. Scorth and I pledge the full support of the Drachmori Protectorate to this initiative. Our medical knowledge, accumulated over millennia, will be shared freely with any who wish to help others. Sarah looked around the chamber, seeing delegates from dozens of species nodding in agreement. Species that had been enemies for centuries were suddenly talking about cooperation and shared goals. There's something else, Sarah said, raising her voice to address the full assembly. The neural link technology we developed could revolutionize how different species communicate and understand each other. Dr. Webb has been working with Queen Zephyria to refine the process, making it safer and more accessible. She gestured to the viewing screen that showed her crew working aboard the Mercy's Hand. Right now, my people are collaborating with Drachmori scientists to create portable neural interface units that could allow any two species to share consciousness temporarily. Imagine the possibilities for diplomacy, for scientific research, for simply understanding each other better. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The ability for different species to truly understand each other's thoughts and motivations could change the fundamental nature of galactic civilization. Finally, the Prime Speaker's harmonic voice filled the chamber once again. Captain Chun, the Galactic Council formally commends you and your crew for actions that have benefited all sentient beings. But more than that, we offer you a choice. What kind of choice? You could accept Director Valen's offer to head the new Interspecies Medical Council. You could return to Earth as heroes and live comfortably for the rest of your days, or... The Prime Speaker paused dramatically. You could accept a new mission. The Council would like to commission the Mercy's Hand as the first ship of the Galactic Emergency Medical Fleet, with you as its commander. Your mission would be to respond to medical emergencies anywhere in the galaxy, regardless of politics or danger. Sarah looked up at Scorth, whose golden eyes held warmth and encouragement. She thought about her crew, who had risked everything for a creature they had never seen before. She thought about all the beings in the galaxy who might need help. Regardless of their species or political affiliation. Honored delegates, she said finally. Speaking for my crew, I can think of nothing we'd rather do than spend. 1 year later, the Mercy's Hand dropped out of hyperspace near a remote mining colony in the Outer Rim. The distress call had been brief but desperate. A mining accident had trapped 300 workers deep underground, and their air supply was running out. Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of her newly upgraded vessel, now twice the size of her original ship and equipped with medical technology from a dozen different species. Her crew had grown to 25 members, representing 8 different species who had volunteered to join the Galactic Emergency Medical Fleet. Dr. Webb. Status report, Sarah called to her chief medical officer, who was now assisted by a brilliant Helix Confederation scientist named Zenek and a Drakmori healer called Dizes. The mine collapse is extensive, Webb reported, his multiple arms working several control panels simultaneously. But Dizes believes she can use Drakmori Earth Sense techniques to map the safest approach routes, while Zenek's crystalline resonance detectors can locate trapped survivors. Sarah nodded, watching the coordination between species that would have been unthinkable just a year ago. The neural interface technology they had developed with Queen Zephyria had revolutionized interspecies cooperation, allowing team members to share not just thoughts but specialized knowledge and sensory experiences. Captain, called Lieutenant Rodriguez from his expanded communications station, we're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's Queen Zephyria and Scorth. Sarah smiled. The dragon and his companion had become frequent partners in their medical missions, with Scorth's strength and Zephyria's ancient wisdom proving invaluable in crisis situations. But more than that, they had become dear friends. Put them through. The main screen filled with the familiar sight of Queen Zephyria's regal features, with Scorth's massive golden eye visible over her shoulder. They were aboard their own ship, now configured as a mobile hospital and research facility. Captain Chun, Queen Zephyria said warmly, Scorth and I were in the system when we heard about the mining accident. We're 30 minutes out and ready to assist. Your timing is perfect, Your Majesty, Sarah replied. We're going to need Scorth's strength to move some of the heavier debris, and your team's earth-moving techniques could be vital. Scorth's deep rumble came through the speakers, and the translation systems converted it to words. It will be good to work alongside humans again. The bond we forged continues to grow stronger. Sarah felt a warm glow of affection. The neural link they had shared during Scorth's healing had created a permanent connection between the dragon and her entire crew. They could sense each other's presence across vast distances, and in moments of crisis that bond had proven invaluable. Dr. Webb, Sarah said, turning back to her medical team, let's begin deployment. Standard emergency protocol, but remember we're dealing with a species we haven't encountered before. The Corvani miners have silicon-based biology, so we'll need to adapt our treatment methods. Already on it, Captain, Webb replied. Zenek's people have experience with silicon-based life forms, and we've loaded the appropriate medical protocols into the neural interface system. As the Mercy's Hand approached the planet's surface, Sarah reflected on how much had changed in the past year. The Galactic Emergency Medical Fleet now consisted of 12 ships, each crewed by mixed species teams, trained in the neural interface techniques originally developed to save Scoreth. More importantly, the philosophy behind their work had spread throughout the galaxy. The idea that help should be offered without consideration of politics or species affiliation had taken root in hundreds of worlds. Wars had ended, alliances had formed, and for the first time in galactic history, there was a growing sense of unity among the diverse civilizations of the galaxy. The ship settled onto the planet's surface near the mine entrance, where local emergency crews had been working frantically to reach the trapped miners. Sarah could see the desperation in their movements, the way they worked despite exhaustion and dwindling hope. "All teams, deploy," Sarah ordered. "Remember, we're not just here to save lives. We're here to show what's possible when different species work together." The next 18 hours were a blur of coordinated effort that showcased everything the galaxy had learned about cooperation. Scoreth used his massive strength to clear debris that would have taken conventional equipment days to move. Zephyria's earth-sense abilities guided rescue teams through the safest passages. Zenix's crystalline resonance located survivors trapped in spaces too small for traditional sensors to detect, but it was the human team members who proved most valuable in the final phase of the rescue. When they reached a group of trapped miners who had been without air for nearly 20 hours, conventional medical wisdom said they were beyond saving. Dr. Webb disagreed. Using the neural interface technology, he linked with Isis to combine human medical knowledge with Drakmori life force manipulation techniques. Together they were able to restart the miner silicon-based metabolisms and restore brain function that had ceased hours earlier. "Impossible," whispered the lead Corvani, emergency coordinator, as he watched the apparently dead miners being revived. "Our own doctors said they were beyond help." "Nothing's impossible when you combine the best of what each species has to offer," Sarah replied, helping to carry one of the revived miners to the surface. As the last survivor was brought up from the depths, Sarah found herself standing beside Scoreth in the alien twilight. The dragon had been instrumental in the rescue, but more than that, his presence had inspired the local emergency teams to push beyond what they thought possible. "Another successful mission," Scoreth rumbled contentedly. "The neural bonds between our species grow stronger with each life we save together." Sarah reached out and touched one of the dragon's massive scales, feeling the warmth and strength beneath. "You know what the best part is? Every time we do this, every time we show the galaxy what cooperation can accomplish, more species want to join us." Indeed, that was true. The waiting list for positions on Galactic Emergency Medical Fleet ships had grown to include representatives from nearly every major civilization. The neural interface technology had broken down barriers that had existed for millennia, allowing beings to truly understand each other for the first time. Queen Zephyria approached, her emerald scales dusty from the rescue operation, but her amber eyes bright with satisfaction. "Captain, we've received word from the Galactic Council. 3 more worlds have petitioned to join the Mutual Aid Coalition. The Vorthan Confederation has offered to provide their defensive technology to protect medical ships. And the Crystal Mines want to establish permanent research partnerships to develop new healing techniques." Sarah shook her head in wonder. A year ago, half of these species had never even spoken to each other. "That's the power of your example," Zephyria said seriously. "When you and your crew chose to help Scoreth despite every reason not to, you proved that compassion was stronger than fear, that cooperation was more powerful than conquest. That lesson has spread throughout the galaxy like ripples in a pond." As if to emphasize the point, Sarah's communication device chimed with an incoming message. The holographic display showed a being she didn't recognize, with features that seemed to be a hybrid of several different species. "Captain Chun," the being said in perfectly translated Standard Galactic. "My name is Coordinator Vex of the Rim Collective. Our alliance of 17 minor species has heard of your work. We would like to request assistance in establishing our own emergency medical response system. Based on your model of interspecies cooperation. Sarah smiled, feeling that familiar warm glow of satisfaction that came from knowing they were making a real difference. Coordinator Vex, we'd be honored to help. Dr. Webb can transmit our training protocols and technical specifications immediately. As the transmission ended, Dr. Webb approached with a data pad in his hand. Captain, I've been analyzing the results from today's mission. The neural interface allowed us to combine Corvani, human, Dracmori, and Helix medical knowledge in real time. We accomplished things that none of our species could have achieved alone. The bonds grow stronger, Skorth observed, his golden eyes reflecting the alien stars. Soon, the distinction between species will matter less than the shared desire to help others. Sarah looked up at the dragon who had started it all. This magnificent being whose trust in humanity had changed the course of galactic history. You know what I think? I think we're just getting started. Above them, the stars shone with the light of hundreds of civilizations, each one a little more connected, a little more compassionate than they had been a year before. In the distance, other ships of the Galactic Emergency Medical Fleet were responding to distress calls across the galaxy, carrying the message that help was always available to those who needed it. The wounded dragon had been healed, but the healing had spread far beyond one creature. It had touched an entire galaxy, proving that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could have the most profound consequences, and as the Mercy's hand prepared to depart for their next mission, Sarah Chun knew with absolute certainty that this was just the beginning of something wonderful. The galaxy had learned to care for each other, and that was a lesson that would echo through